And now we're going to go on to that debate we've been talking about all morning. A lot of people are going to be incensed about this one.
That's right. Here's a question for you. We're starting this. I've just finished the T-bone for breakfast.
I'm
from
smelling
Gallagher's.
the remnants here. Just keep breathing on me.
The question is, when you go out to eat at a place in Mississippi, if a couple of lawmakers had their way, if you were obese, however they define that, you would not be served. That's exactly right. So joining us right now for a fair and balanced debate, we've got both sides.
Yeah, we have the founder of the National Action Against Obesity, MeMe Roth, and from D.C., Justin Wilson from the Center for Consumer Freedom. Good to see both of you this morning.
Good morning.
All right, MeMe, so we're going to turn to you because you're on the couch and you're taking maybe the unpopular side of this debate because you're saying, oh, it's not so bad if restaurants don't allow overweight people to come into their restaurants. How can they do that?
Well, actually, I don't support this bill at all. And interestingly, neither do the men who wrote it. They've gone on the record saying, look, we're not for intrusive government, but let's look at why they are doing it. Not to castigate, alienate, and eventually isolate a third of the population. That's never going to help this obesity crisis. But what they did is they ran this by the governor of Mississippi. They ran this by the public health chairman, and they issued this to get us to talk about it, to get us to take some action against obesity. So they've got us talking about it.
Oh, we're talking about it. And Justin, this is the thing. This is another example, even though it's not going to pass, another example where the government is intruding into our lives to tell us what to eat, what to say, what to think, blah, blah, blah.
You know, you're exactly right. I've seen a lot of crazy ideas when it comes to obesity, and I'll tell you what, though, this one takes the cake, and it takes the salad, and it takes the entree, and it takes your T-bone. I mean, give me a break. What is this guy thinking? You know, the food police, MeMe Roth, and everyone else are they've gone too far. People, when did it become a situation where the food that we eat is the government's business? You know, today's Super Tuesday, and we're talking about obese people, so I think it's important to know, you know, both Eli and Tom are considered officially fat, so it's a good thing the Super Bowl is not in Mississippi. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be able to get a meal, apparently.
Well, according to the BMI index, MeMe, Eli Manning, the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl today, and Tom Brady would be considered obese. And I guess when I'm thinking through this story, I totally understand what you're saying about the obesity problem. But is it the restaurant's responsibility to, number one, identify who's fat enough or not to come into their restaurant, and number two, to use this BMI index because it is kind of suspicious if those two would be considered overweight?
The BMI index, the body mass index, has a fatal flaw. It doesn't take into consideration someone might be a professional athlete or a bodybuilder, but that's why it's a starter benchmark. It's not the end-all, be-all.
But don't people know if they're overweight? I mean, you can look at people on the street. You don't need the BMI index. You can tell if somebody's overweight, and shouldn't they personally know they are overweight? Should it not be the responsibility of the restaurant?
A hallmark of the obesity crisis is denial. 2/3 of people who are overweight don't recognize the degree of their obesity. The same is true that they don't recognize the degree of their children's obesity. So I do think we need to intervene, but we need to intervene as a society, not the way this bill proposes.
How do you want to intervene?
Let's talk about what we should do. If we have to admit that this is a crisis. If it is a crisis, like our former Surgeon General said, it's the terror within. Let's do the basics. There is no argument for having junk food in school. School environment should be...
And in a lot of schools it's gone.
No, it's not all the way gone. It needs to be all the way gone. There is no argument for junk food in a child care setting. 0 to 5-year-olds is where this obesity epidemic is going to be reversed. Let's get it out of child care settings. No more junk food marketing to children, period. Let's stop bickering about it. We've got to do the obvious things.
Justin, what about that stuff?
You know, the way that they're targeting restaurants in the food sector, you know, Mississippi ranks bottom, absolutely 0 when it comes to physical activity, and that's just lost in this debate, and it's the elephant in the room, frankly, and MeMe wants to target just a few restaurants or a few food options, but we need to get a better understanding of what makes us overweight and obese. I mean, heck, by the body mass index, I'm overweight, and I just happen to go to the gym a lot, but we've just kind of lost our head in this, and we're trying to target a few places where we're getting food. But I just wish they would do something about physical activity down in Mississippi.
What I'd like to say about what he's commenting on is it's a silly assumption to think that we can exercise off all this junk food. You cannot be healthy at any weight without exercise. But But
Mimi, you should have seen what I had for breakfast this morning. I mean, I just go for runs a lot. It's perfectly fine. You just need to be. It's about personal responsibility, not
I know that the fast food
government
companies and
responsibility.
soft drink makers are paying you to say what you're saying, but let me finish my point.
Come on, Mimi.
It takes a mile and a half to run off 2 Girl Scout cookies. Let's be realistic about that. No one can exercise enough to run off the deluge of junk food
Mimi,
that we're
I'm not
seeing.
talking about exercising. I'm talking about living a healthy lifestyle, and that's what's the problem here.
Which, of course, includes exercise, and I agree with you completely on that, but we've got to get junk food and soft drinks out of children's mouths.
Yeah, really I do think that that's a good idea. If your kid's sitting at school for 8 hours a day and the only option is junk, there's something wrong with that. All right, Mimi and Justin, thank you so much for joining us for the wonderfully heated debate this morning.